Hey there, everybody, and it's time again for replay reviews. And this time around, after doing a little bit of searching here and there and trying to stay away from some things I want to cover in more depth and try not to be a little too predictable, I thought we'd talk maybe a little bit about what I consider to be the best way to report on your replay. Now, I don't want to embarrass anybody. I don't want to come here and show you somebody and say, look, this person did this wrong or that wrong. However, I will tell you that there's something more to a replay than just taking box scores or taking complete game scores and posting it onto a forum and expecting people to have interest in it. So the person I'm going to pick on is actually a good friend of mine. Some of you know him from the forums, and many of you will probably be upset when you know that I have a good relationship with him. This is from Mark Ruckhouse. So hi there, Mark, and I hope that you're watching some of this. You're probably not, because you're probably busy playing games. Mark has done a number of replays over on the Skeetersoft forums. I mean, a large number of them. And there are some of his replays that I want to go into more depth with. Right now, though, I wanted to take a quick look here at his most recent replay, which is 1918. I recall saying to someone here, I'd never attempt to replay the 1918 season, he says, and here you can see there's this large discussion of all the stuff that happens. He does mention that a lot of his projects are taken up with research, including going through every box score to get a handle on player usage, to see comings and goings and things like that. That means going through newspapers, New York Times, the Brooklyn Eagle, and the Sporting News, and other newspapers. And I've been trying to tell Mark, although it's been a couple of months probably since I last talked with him, that if you go to newspapers.com, you can get more papers than that, and you'll find some other information about how people played and how different players were used and stuff like that. But the nice thing about Mark's replays is not just that he goes into a lot of depth and that he goes through newspapers. Right. That stuff is pretty cool, and he has these big write-ups and things like that. He'll actually reply to messages, unlike people like me, and he'll put in nice headlines there from the New York Post. We're not going to go too deep into what in the world's going on there. But there's a lot of interesting stuff here. For example, quotes from the Sporting News in 1917, 1918 to set up the season. Then the real cool part about his replay that I really enjoy is that he'll write summaries of every single game that he plays. Now, he's not the only one who does this, right? There are other people who do the same thing, and I really appreciate it, because for some of us, it's a lot of fun to sit down and read not only the box score of what happened and not only clippings from newspapers, but to get into what happened in your game and to read what you have to say about this, right? We'll skip through, I think, a little bit more of this, and I want to show you that even when we're not talking about opening day, we're talking about lots of stuff happening in the game, lots of stuff on the ground, 7 outfield outs aside, 7 combined double plays, and scoreless after 9 innings, 10-inning game that the Pirates finally win, and so on and so forth. If you've been reading my blog and if you've looked at the way that I report, you will probably notice that a lot of the things I do kind of take after what Mark does. It's not 100% the same, but he's really been a very large inspiration to me in the way that he handles this stuff and the way that he writes out the descriptions of all of these games. And it's fascinating, and it's a lot of fun to read. It does take a little while to write, though, and for those of us who are blessed with all sorts of other things in our lives, it might not be entirely feasible. It also takes a while to get through. So if we go look here at the most recent post here, you can see we're in March. He's only up through early May. I think he's actually playing faster than I have. Anyway, this is the thing that's interesting about this, because there's all sorts of stuff from the news, including talk about, say, Fred Toney, who was arrested for being a draft dodger, and all sorts of interesting stuff, being charged with violating the Mann Act, and things that are very interesting and kind of not the sort of thing you would expect to see from a replay. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that to have, a legitimate or a good replay or anything like that, that you need to necessarily jump deep into the season and do all sorts of newspaper research and try to figure out everything that's going on. I think you're fine just, sort of looking at some of the things that are happening and kind of keeping it at that. You don't necessarily have to go all out for a replay review or for a replay write-up, but the more information you can give us, the better. And it really is kind of a test of the imagination. The more you allow your imagination to go along with the game and what's happening, and along with what's happening in real life, the more entertaining and interesting it is for your audience. And that's the difference between writing a replay write-up that doesn't get very many views and people tend to sort of gloss over, and writing something that's really in-depth and really interesting and gets people excited and gets people to respond and gets people to sit down and read what you have to say. It does take a little bit of time, but I would argue that once you get the hang of it, it might not take more time than you think it does. So love to know what you guys think about this. This is another relatively obscure person there, unless you happen to be part of the APBA community, and you may have different opinions about Mark. Like I said, though, I think he's a good friend and he's a good guy. So that's at least my opinion on the subject. Hope you guys are having a good day, and we'll leave it at that. Talk to you later. Bye.